Deep Dive Film School makes no claim of ownership in the film footage used in this episode. The film footage is owned entirely by the copyright holders. Also, we're going to spoil the hell out of this movie, so this is your warning. Welcome to Deep Dive Film School!
Oh, this week we got a special Halloween episode. We're going to get into James Wan 2021 film, Malignant.
Let's dive in!
Oh!
All right, everybody, I am Adam Sherlock.
And I'm Adam Pulcher.
Happy Halloween, everybody! Yeah! If you like what you see /here, please like and subscribe. You can find us in all the spaces and places that people what, Pulcher?
Find good Halloween media.
That's right, good Halloween media. Yeah, you know, I am like such a horror hound that every time that we get to this time of year, I'm like, what should we do? There's so many to choose from.
Obviously, lots of classics.
Yep.
We don't do like a ton of new stuff on here, so this was a good opportunity. This came out not too long ago, maybe 2 or 3 months ago. You know, in the theaters. James Wan is personally like, I'm not a horror like you are, nice. But I do love myself a good horror movie. In my realm of things,
right.
And James Wan is one of my favorites. I love The Conjuring. I love Insidious. He's just a really good horror director. Didn't he do the first Saw as well?
That's right. He did. Him and Lee Winnell did the first Saw movie, and it's like really when it comes to that kind of top shelf horror stuff that's happening right now, I think it's really him and Mike Flanagan, who did like The Haunting of Hill House and those
Midnight Mass.
Midnight Mass, I just finished that. That thing's amazing. but yeah, it's like I saw the poster around with the Malignant thing, and it's got the main actress, and she's on her side, and she's like, and there's like the G or whatever in Malignant's like gonna stab her in the eye, and it's like a new vision of horror. And I was kind of like, at first when I watched the trailer, I was like, well, how new can this be? Because it kind of like the trailer showed a lot of this like a woman scared, and like a woman scared like in her kitchen, and then her kitchen like bleh, and it like mutates into a different room, and I was like, okay, so is this just another like haunted house kind of a thing?
I definitely at a point in the movie was like, oh, is this one of the character, the house as a character movies? And to a degree, it is.
It is,
but is not the actual truth of what's happening. But he makes it seem like the house is a character.
Very much so.
A lot in this movie. But we can get into that specifically. You know, I read the tagline. It was basically, a girl's vision worsens as her dreams become a reality. I'm like, okay, I've seen that before, but bring it on. Come on, James Wan.
Let's do it.
Let's do it.
Well, and obviously there's a ton of, I mean, he knows his horror chops throughout his entire horror career. He has done homages to so many different genre favorites. And this has a lot of them, although it's more, and I hope I'm saying the word right again as a horror fanatic, but the giallo, or giallo, sometimes it's referred to as like Italian horror from the 70s and early 80s. You know, I mean, whether you're talking about stuff like Suspiria, or you're thinking of like New York Ripper, Deep Red, Opera, like, you know, with this like sort of red and blue neon lighting, super stylized, the slasher with the black leather gloves, the some kind of implement of torture and mayhem. In this case, it's this trophy sword thing, but all those different elements completely work together here. But you know, I was going, okay, so is this a slasher thing? But then there's obviously this woman's having these visions, and so it's like she's clairvoyant and she can see into the mind of the killer, kind of a thing.
It's funny because I think I kind of really appreciate, and Mike Flanagan does this too as well. They both use mostly non-actors or people that not Hollywood A-list stars by any means.
Yeah.
And most of their productions, right? And I guess you could say that about Patrick Wilson or whatever. But like, there's a few, but like for the most part, like he doesn't like. Do you know anyone in this movie?
No, nobody in this movie do I know. And I totally agree that it's like the main woman. I can't think of the actress's name. I don't know.
Annabelle Wallis.
So who plays Madison, and she's just this kind of like she's fine. She's sort of just this like, okay, this is our lead heroine.
She had
that we're
a
following.
small role in Annabelle, the movie.
Oh, okay.
As well. Maybe it's because her name's Annabelle. I don't know.
We'll give her a gimme. But yeah, you're totally right that it's like, and one thing that's really interesting in this movie from the outset is that there's a varying range of, I don't want to say actor ability, but acting quality. Some people are playing this totally straight. So this Annabelle, whatever her name is, that plays Madison, she's playing it pretty straight. The actress who plays her younger sister playing it pretty straight.
You mean Christy Swanson?
Yes. No, right?
Like she looks so much like
she does look
I'm
exactly
thinking Buffy the Vampire Slayer.
The movie. Yeah.
I totally got Christy Swanson.
But I'm thinking then of like the main detective. He's playing it kind of half and half, but his partner, that's the sassy black lady, who's what the hell's wrong with these white people kind of a thing. I'm like, what is happening here?
Yeah, she's like Wanda Sykes light.
Yeah, and I was like, but it seems super on purpose, and I was like, what is going on with the bad acting here? Because also, in our very opening sequence, we have this like flashback sequence in this hospital, and the main doctor is playing it pretty straight, but the guy who plays like the security guard or whatever, he's controlling the lights. It's so cheesy. I'm like, what is happening here?
It's definitely true, and I didn't notice that stuff like sticking out that much. Just because the story was really intriguing and it was really stylized and well made.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree. In the opening scene, I'm like, okay, so. Yeah, okay, we're going back to a science lab. This can't be good, right?
Yeah.
Like, and then and it's like a recording from 1993, I think, or something like that. And they start talking, and then the monster gets loose. I'm like, okay, so we're immediately like chasing something.
Yeah.
But yeah, I agree with you.
I mean, our opening shot, again, to think about something like The Conjuring or like Insidious.
Cut out the cancer.
We're cutting out the cancer. but in the opening sequence of this movie, the very first shot we get is of this like, it's 1993, but still this children's hospital exists in like a gothic mansion owned by Vincent Price, right? It's this like on this cliffside.
And they moved into Edward Scissorhands' house.
Fucking complete, yes. And it reminded me of another lesser known James Wan movie before he really hit big with Insidious, which was Dead Silence.
Oh yeah,
with the haunted marionette puppets or whatever, ventriloquist dummies. Like that whole thing to me, I was like, oh, he's kind of hearkening back to that, where it's like he's being cornball on purpose, and I was like, okay, this is a really weird fit.
Yeah,
and it takes, I'd say it takes about an hour of this kind of moving back and forth between tones before you get, in my opinion, what is the grand joke. Not that the movie's a joke, and not that the production was a joke. Like, obviously, a lot of care went into making this.
Sure.
But the grand joke that James Wan is playing on all of us having sat down to watch his movie, after that hour, when you get that sort of twist, is when you suddenly go, okay, all of this, like, cornball stuff he's added in here was all on purpose.
Oh, completely.
Like, but it does, in the first half, you're like, is this a misstep? But then, after you get to that hour, and some people I know fucking hate this movie, so I'll just say that there are some people I know that hate it. It's not for everybody. I am one of those people where the second time around watching it, I was like, oh, this is going to be an annual thing for me come Halloween to watch Malignant.
I really like. I'm one who liked it. I enjoyed where it went. I love that it got weird.
Ridiculously weird.
And you kind of mentioned the homages, but there's so many that stuck out to me here that you can go through. Even just the credit sequence was from Seven, basically.
Totally.
Like a Trent Reznor credit sequence.
I was so pumped to have an actual credit sequence that's stylized and has like industrial music. Yeah. And I was like, dude, when's the last time you even saw a title sequence in a movie?
In a movie,
they don't do them.
Yeah, it's true. Not that much anymore, but definitely something that I got tons of Repulsion vibes through this movie.
Oh, definitely, yeah.
There's obviously nods to Scream. There's nods to the Ringu or The Ring as well. There's just a bunch of stuff. I'm like, oh, I know.
That's what you did with that one. And like I said, all of that,
fun,
all that Italian horror stuff.
And then it becomes its own thing once you get past the setup of everything.
Yeah. And what's funny too is upon rewatch, oh my God, there are so many Easter eggs just for where the movie is headed. I think that there is maybe between 10 and 15 times that Madison says, "He's in my head."
Well,
like,
her
just
her
nail.
head's bleeding the whole movie.
Yes, it's like total nail on that, like, gunk. Like, yes, that is literally, she is explaining the twist in the movie to us. And, we talk about this at the beginning every time that we're going to spoil the hell out of this. This is a new movie, but this spoil, I think this is like obviously not a cultural phenomenon in the way of Sixth Sense, but in terms of, like, if you're telling somebody, like, you should just go see, you should see it. Like, because you kind of can't believe in this day and age that a movie would pull off a twist like this with someone like James Wan, who really does have, he has a cachet of people are going to go and check out what he does because of who he is.
I hope so.
And then he does, do you remember when I said we should do this movie, what I akined the twist to?
I don't remember.
I said, it's not this. I said, but you remember that movie Orphan?
Yeah.
And I was like, and it was like a pretty high budget movie, and it was like, oh, it's an evil kid movie. And then the twist is, she's a 35-year-old, like, Russian woman with, like, mental illness pretending to be an 11-year-old child. And you're like, wow, man, that's ballsy. That, like, this high profile. Yeah.
I mean, if you think about the twist and, like you said, watching it and understanding it after the fact of what it's building up to, none of it is that ridiculous to me.
No, not at
all. You're watching a horror movie. None of this shit is real, so just go for it.
Yeah, like if ghosts are real, then you know what? Somebody can totally have like a cancerous brain tumor twin that's coming out of their back that's also like a satanic ninja. Like, of course they can. That's the twist, everybody. If you're not bothering to watch Malignant, the twist is she is the killer, doesn't know.
She's got a monster tumor.
She has a monster tumor.
Literally
growing out of the back of her, and it's such a great reveal. And also it produces this really bizarre, uncanny element to the killer when we do see the killer that we can't figure out what we're looking at, because it is a person, and obviously a lot of it's CGI, but a lot of it is also actual character design of a contortionist.
Yeah.
That's doing all this killing and jumping out of windows and doing all this stuff backwards, and seeing the way that the arms and legs move backwards.
Yeah.
It really fucks with your head while you're watching it early when you don't know what's happening yet.
Yeah, for sure. And there's definitely moments and parts where like you notice that she keeps complaining, and obviously for valid reasons. This lady has had a tragic life. Like, we start off with her asshole boyfriend.
Oh my god, the most central casting abusive husband who's just like,
watching WWE.
Yeah, why do you keep killing all my babies? Yeah. And you're like, really?
Why can't any of my sperm live inside you?
So weird. I was watching that. Like, that whole sequence, again, bad acting. I was like...
I was not sad when the black demon got him.
No, not at all. But I was very surprised about it.
We get thrown into these shitty people's lives, and this poor lady is just trying to survive.
Yeah.
And, I can't imagine what it would be like to lose a baby, let alone 3.
Yeah.
And the mental anguish that would take, and physical anguish. That's just beyond my perception of things that could happen. And just dealing with that. And then you have this asshole husband who slams her head into the wall or whatever. And just, again, like it was easy to watch him be one of the first victims.
You wanted to see him get taken down for sure.
Yeah, but she loses both the baby and him in like the same hospital.
Yeah, when she wakes up, it's all already happened.
Yeah.
Now, what we find out later is that head smack is what woke up.
So you're jumping right to.
I don't know. I'm kind of playing at both sides here, but it's the thing that wakes up Gabriel.
I love that aspect of it. I think that's really kind of subtly spoken there, of like, oh, that abuse is what caused all of this.
Yeah.
So pretty wild.
There's some psychological turmoil
throughout
happening.
the movie. I kept wondering, like, okay, well, she's got to be the demon to some degree, but she's not. Like, we see it, and also the weird thing about this demon too is like it's actually pretty talkative.
Yeah.
Like he calls and you can hear his voice through Gabriel. You could hear his voice through like old radios and stuff. but he would like call people and threaten them and all this stuff. I'm like, damn. Also, someone needs to call an electrician in their house.
Yeah, every light.
I know a guy.
Yeah, you should run some new Romex 220 through that house, because like it's probably old knob and tube. Just looking at the age of the house. Yeah, I mean that's an old.
You
place,
obviously have some constant problems.
Well, and also like the house itself somehow defies a lot of logic in terms of the size of rooms and sort of the layout of it. It keeps showing the exterior of it, and you're like, that's like a narrow little place.
They do an amazing job with this bird's eye view.
Oh my God,
of the house though, I love that scene. That was so cool. That was probably one of my favorite parts of just seeing her walk through the house. But it looks kind of like it's like a dollhouse view, or
the camera's moving up above through that huge set, and it's really brilliant. But it does make me go, okay, all of this is kind of parable. None of this is actually happening, because the rooms when you're inside the house are way too big for the way that the outside of the house looks. Like there's spaces where you're like, when she looks out the window and then walks to her right, and when it shows the outside of the house, I'm like, that's the window she looked out of. There's not a room to the right. And I'm like, and James Wan's not a dumb guy, and so I'm like, he's doing this on purpose to give us this like weird sensibility. And the same thing later when we're in the police station again, where later this epic fight scene happens. But like, what the hell is up with that main police station area where all their desks are? The room is gigantic. It's like an opera house.
And also, no one works there ever.
Yeah, nobody works.
It's just the one guy.
It's just always kind of sitting there. Yeah, I mean, there's so many weird moments like that throughout this. I think later when we are in the sort of drunk tank, some of the women that are in there, I'm like, again, central casting. Like the lady that's in like a disco roller skating like onesie zip up with a giant afro. I'm like, what era did she walk out of? It's like she came off the set of
clubbing.
It's like she came off the set of The Deuce. It's just like, was she just next door? And they're like, oh, we need some extras. Everybody get in here. We're gonna kill everybody.
That might have actually been
happening. Could very well be. But it is this weird thing where I'm like, all of it again feels very on purpose to just kind of create this very strange kind of texture to the movie.
Yeah, it's really weird. She has some things about her life that we end up finding out. Obviously the miscarriages, and that's a heavy burden. And then we find out she's actually adopted, and her sister has no idea. Also, a little too on the nose, and I know this is a real thing, but she hosts a Seattle underground like haunted space. Like you can actually go there; it's a real thing. But I'm like, come on, that's her job.
Yeah, totally. Well, no, that's the mother's job. That's
the mother?
Yeah, that's the, and we don't know that that's who she is. She's the biological mother who gets kidnapped,
who ends up being tied to the
wall. And as long as we're keeping track, as long as we're keeping score about all of this stuff. Also, she gets kidnapped and brought back to this gigantic attic that seems to be like the like it looks like the bell tower from like Vertigo or something, that's in the top of Madison's house. that has ceilings that are like 25 feet high
and apparently paper thin.
And no one's ever decided to go up there.
That was actually a great reveal.
Oh, it is awesome. Like, this is the thing,
because whoever casted that looks exactly like the girl, like the main girl we've been following. Like, I know it's her biological mother, but like, it was so close that it was hard to tell who was who sometimes.
Well, and I just love, I love that it's basically this idea of, for a guy who spent so many years, Wan, for a guy who spent so many years being like, horror takes place in a real neighborhood, in a real, like, he really brought back this poltergeisty kind of vibe with Insidious, to then be like, in this movie, like, it's all like your suspension of disbelief needs to be so high in order for you to enjoy this, that all you wussies need to, you can just leave, because I have no interest in showing you this movie, right? So if you're like, oh, come on, it's like, oh, this isn't for you, right? This is for everybody else who can stick around and be like you said earlier, like, it's a horror movie, like, who gives a shit? This is gonna be fun, and it really leans into that heavily.
She keeps having these flashbacks, and it feels like she's in the room killing someone or doing something. And if you don't know the ending yet, you're just like, what is happening? Like, is she psychic? Like, is this like 30 years ago?
Yeah.
Like, what's happening?
And like, why is she
They're
linked?
killing these doctors.
Yeah, why is she linked to this person? And
Yeah.
then you find out, A, she's adopted, and B, like, oh, Gabriel was her imaginary friend. Like, oh no.
Well, and that video too, where she's pregnant with her sister and she wants to do something. Don't hurt the baby.
Because she's going to cut the cake, but then it's like, you know, once everything drips away, which I really do like that effect, that dripping away of the room into the next room.
Yeah, no,
and she's got the knife not above the cake, but above the mom's stomach is like, oh my God. Like, yeah, all that stuff is just, it's so fantastic. But you're right. You're going, so is she psychic? And again, like when I was going, oh, she's psychic.
Not flashing back. Though.
Yeah. When I was thinking of that, though, I was like, oh, if it's just that she's psychic and there's like a killer loose that's like a deformed like twin of hers, I'm like, that'll be kind of a bummer.
That's the thing is like he made it his own, right?
You
could tell the story that's been told 1,000 times before.
Yeah.
But if you can make it your own and make it some unique thing, and he obviously did. It also had some reminiscence of Teeth, obviously. Stuff like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I loved it. I thought it was awesome. I love the creature when Gabriel gets exposed. I thought it was so cool.
It's so cool.
And the fact that how it takes over her, and that's actually what we should have been seeing the whole time was her, and she is the demon.
Yeah, it's just that he has this weird leather coat that's very reminiscent. Did you ever see the movie The Brotherhood of the Wolf?
I feel like I have.
It was like a French movie, but it had kind of like this pseudo kung fu, but it took place in like sort of Victorian era. Like it was very weird. Like, but the jacket that he wears is very reminiscent of that sort of. And we don't find out until later. It's covering up her face, right? The jacket covers up her face, and all I can think to myself is that. And I don't know if this is the way that it worked, because I've read some interviews with James Wan about this movie, but he doesn't ever specifically talk about this. But just the fight scene that takes place, which again, you want to talk about homages, all of a sudden in the third act, I'm like, I would never have thought that this would have an homage to The Matrix in it. Like watching the first half of the movie, in no way would you think that, yet it's totally there.
Oh, yeah.
But this fight scene, this acrobatic, super gory fight scene, where the character is spinning around and there is a passed out beautiful woman's face against the back of the head, I'm like, I wouldn't be surprised at all if James Wan had a nightmare or something and had that image and was like, okay, how do I make this into a movie? And
awesome
then pieced it out both ways, you know?
You get that awesome reveal of like, oh, this is what's been happening the whole time.
And you've never seen anything like it. I've never seen anything like that.
The prison attack, you mean?
The prison attack and then the attack on the police precinct.
Yeah.
I've never seen anything like that. I can say, like, it's spellbinding to me. It's so bizarre looking. The only thing I can even come close to, which is not close at all, but there's like an 80s underground science fiction movie called Extro. And there's these weird aliens in it that walk, their legs bend the wrong way. And the way they did the practical effect is pretty brilliant, where they put the alien face mask on the back of the actor's head and had him do a crab walk, right? So he's on his hands and legs. But because the face is going the other way, when you see it, there's like a pretty famous scene where this car's driving through this forest at night, and the headlights hit it for just a second, and the alien head turns and looks at the person and then walks away, but because the legs go the wrong way, you're like, fuck, that's really disturbing.
Yeah.
And when really the effect is incredibly practical and easy, but the same thing is happening here, where you're like, in so many ways, a lot of the practical effects they're doing, as you said, a contortionist, but because you put that head on the back and then you CGI the feet to move the other, so they're going the wrong way, your brain can't, it's like your brain can't make sense of it.
Can't figure out what's going on.
Oh, I loved it.
So
I loved the way it felt.
She's technically, Gabriel's technically, a parasitic twin. Is
Yeah.
that right?
Uh-huh.
So some kind of tumor or parasite or something, and we get to this point where they try to surgically remove the tumor.
The reveal when the younger sister and the adoptive mom are watching the footage, and it's of Madison, and she's kind of sedated, and she's talking, and they're like, "We're gonna wake Gabriel up," and the camera pans around to the back, and it's before they've cut him all up, so he has his own little like Quato Total Recall arms and this little like face.
Totally Quato.
And the fact that we see their reaction of them going, "Oh God," and we're doing it too, I was like, I love this. What a great reveal, because it's really unsettling to look at.
Yeah, and though sometimes it may seem like a TV movie reveal, it's still like really fun.
It totally is. Well, and I think he leans into that, because later when Madison is talking directly to Gabriel, it gets so TV movie. It's
total.
There is straight up like Lifetime movie dialogue happening where she's like, "It's my mind, not yours, Gabriel, and I know how to use it now." And I'm like, holy shit! Like we've gone so far down the rabbit hole, but I'm with it. I'm totally with it.
They've been doing it the whole movie. Yeah, that's totally why.
You just don't know that it's to that level.
Yeah. Last thing I'll say, the last homage that I saw a lot was Cronenberg. There's the body horror aspect to a lot of this. Wouldn't you say there's some Cronenberg in here?
Oh, definitely. There's a ton of that body horror stuff happening. And I think also there's two levels of Cronenberg body horror, because one is very much that body horror of self, as we've seen in things like The Fly or Dead Ringers or some of his other films.
Yep.
But then there's also the violence. When it gets violent, I mean, it is beyond slasher level of violence. I mean, we see, again, he has this award that he's taken from the first victim, the doctor.
That's right.
And he's sharpened it and he's turned it into, again, which is total like that Italian slasher stuff. Like, this is now his weapon, right? And we see him, when he kills that second doctor, just climb astride his chest and go to town on the guy's face over and over and over again. And we're like, oh my God, like, holy shit.
Yeah.
But I guess the last thing I'll say is I love the physicality of our villain here, because again, most of what James Wan has done in terms of horror has really been in the realm of ghosts, of sort of things popping out and scaring you, but not actual like physical, like the physicality has never really existed before. But I'm like, well, he heads away from horror. He takes a vacation for a couple of years. He does a Fast and the Furious movie.
Right. He did a Fast.
He does Aquaman.
That's right.
And he's able to come back and choreography these like big, elaborate set pieces for fight scenes and for chase scenes and for all these other things that I'm like, yeah, like it really was thrilling. And at the same time, he kept that uncanny aspect to our creature that makes it feel like it's a chase scene. But when the cop is trying to chase Gabriel and he's jumping from one part of the fire escape to the next, but the character's backwards, I'm like, this is the weirdest looking thing.
Well, he obviously loves horror, and I hope he continues to do it throughout his career, but at the same time, I would love to see him do other shit too, because I think he really is a great voice of this generation of filmmakers. He's really good.
Very unique.
I always like watching his stuff, and I'll always tune in for it. Well, that was awesome. Happy Halloween, everyone. Thanks so much for listening. Please like and subscribe if you like what you see/hear. Next week, we are going to get into, I think we're going to do that one scene from Old Boy, and we're going to have a punishment review from Dick Tracy. I hope you're ready for that one.
Oh, yeah.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Happy Halloween.